what's happening.
Now, when you see the injustices that happen to black people in this country, I'm sure it affects you a different way because of your family. So what can law enforcement be doing better to ensure the safety of black civilians?
It's got to start with changing all of the assumptions about common humanity. There is not an assumption of common humanity, and we got to get there. And one of the things we're trying to do in New York, we're doing implicit bias training, because we're all biased, every single human being, because of culture, family, whatever.
Very true.
We got to bring that out, and so that's part of it. We're training de-escalation. I mean, it's a really important concept.
Right.
If you get into a situation, how do you bring it down immediately and try and use the least force? These things are making a huge difference, but it's also with the core philosophy we have is neighborhood policing, and it's very much about humanity. Officers are now trained, you have to learn the names of the people in the neighborhood you serve. You have to stop into the stores. You have to meet the clergy. You have to meet the grandma on the block who knows what's going on and say good morning. And by the way, it's a two-way street. Then that also encourages community members to say good morning to the police officer or thank you when they do something to help them. We're encouraging the officers now, give out your cell phone number, your work cell phone, your email, so that people feel the officer directly works for them. That's actually the goal, is that, the officer, I always use the analogy of the villages we all come from. Every single one of us comes from a village, not so long ago in our ancestral history. In the village, there were guardians. Guardians were of and by and for the village. And there was no sense of separation or bias or disconnect. Part of how you get back to that is people actually finding each other's common humanity. And I always say, I want our officers, if they see a young man walking up to them, I want to feel like I want them to feel like that's their own son, their own nephew.
Right.
Feel that connection. I think that is teachable in the sense of a strategy that encourages constant dialogue and mutual respect. We haven't had that. Let's face that. It has not been the norm in American policing. As we started to apply it, we see a lot less use of force, and we see many fewer tragedies, thank God. But at the same time, we're getting safer. A lot of people used to say, if you do that kind of thing, that's like social work. Oh, that's so soft. No, it actually also helps you stop crime, because now, the community is in it with the police and vice versa.
How do we break down the blue, quote-unquote, blue wall of silence, where we feel like the cops are out for the community and not just to hold each other down like it's a fraternity or a sorority?
Charlene, you should say what you think, but I'll tell you, from my point of view, I think it is part of ending that artificial disconnect. It's like the shirt you're wearing. It's like it used to be, it's community against the police, and, we go into battle. I mean, think about that for a moment. It used to be almost a combat mentality of going into neighborhoods, not being of them and protecting them together, but having to deal with a problem, if you will. And that never worked. It was corrosive in so many ways. I think if you say, okay, there's no need for a wall if you actually are establishing that common link. And it's just very, very different when there's a dialogue. I mean, I've seen this over and over again. I go up to the officers who are part of this neighborhood policing, and I ask them what they experience. One of the first things they say to me is, people come up to them all the time and offer them the information they need and say, here's a problem. Here's a beef between two gangs that's getting out of hand. Here's, we know someone stole something, whatever it might be. And that is encouraging, a sense of everyone's trying to achieve the same thing. Everyone wants to stop violence. I mean, it's another interesting example of the Cure Violence movement in this city, which we believe in fundamentally in this administration. We've really deeply supported the Cure Violence movement. It has a very different role to play than police. Gang interrupters, violence interrupters, a lot of different names that is used for. Very different role in police. But one of the things we encourage is police to respect that movement, and that's been a real breakthrough, because that's a movement of the community trying to stop violence from the grassroots. We now see our police understanding that's an allied movement, even if it has a different role to play. It's an allied movement. That has changed a lot of the tonality too, because when community members see these good young people trying to struggle against violence, and they see the police respecting that, it sends a very powerful message, and that's helped a lot, I think.